Hello and welcome back to Radical Disruption. Today's guest episode is with one of my dearest Instagram friends and previous client, Morgan. Morgan is a holistic therapist and business mentor who has grown an audience of over 400,000 people and a six-figure business in less than 2 years, and now helps other entrepreneurs and business owners grow their businesses online while keeping their mental health intact. In this episode, we talk about why focusing on our mental and holistic health is critical for long-term success in our businesses and how our holistic and mental health impacts every aspect of our businesses. Let's dive into the conversation. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I have Morgan here with me. Morgan and I have quite the background story. Okay, that makes it sound like we're like ancient friends or something like that. I feel like we have been though. You and I have been connected for quite some time now. Morgan was in my mini mind that I ran last year and we've just stayed connected, and she's absolutely the best human being, and I'm so excited for you to learn from her today. But thank you so much for being here, Morgan.
Thank you. I feel the same. I love it when it's mutual. It's just, yeah, it's an honor to be here. And I'm really excited for this conversation because I feel like not enough people are talking about what we're going to share today with bringing in our holistic health and our nervous systems and combining a lot of my two worlds together into a conversation I'm really excited about.
Yes, I love that. Before we dive in, though, I would love to know, what is your entrepreneurship story? How did you get started?
So I started as a therapist and as someone that's working in mental and holistic health. And I started posting online. I actually took a little bit of a twisting of my arm because I was already doing in person and I had my own private practice and things like that. But I had a friend that was doing online courses and things with other clients. And she said, I think you could really do this. And so I started posting online. And before I knew it, I had quite a following. And yeah, and I always say I'm infiltrating there because in a lot of ways, social media and working online is can be a really brutal place for our mental health. And in a lot of ways it's like I've had to go where the people are because in some ways as a therapist the best advice I would give is get off of it right? But in reality it can also be a huge platform for so many beautiful things, but it's also we need to learn how to drive the vehicle. I've had an analogy given to me once that it's like we've invented the car, but we haven't invented the seatbelt yet. So we're like needing to figure out how to strap ourselves in and be safe with it. And so that's a big part of my entrepreneurial journey is not only being a therapist, but learning how to be a business owner in that space and learning how to drive the vehicle safely. Yeah, just both as a human behind the scenes of, wow, it's really hard when a troll says that thing, or it's really all the things that can spike your nervous system into a survival state is, we could talk about it for the entire episode, just that alone. Yeah, that's a big part of the journey has just been learning how to do that as a person. But once I had really I built over 400,000 followers in less than 2 years and built a six-figure business in that time as well, which is also a wild ride. But as I started to get into recognizing more and more that I knew a lot, and I learned a lot from you throughout that whole process too, of just how to build a business and how to do this online, I realized that I had a lot to offer as well in the business coaching space. And so I started to combine a lot of that as well into helping other people, not just therapists, but mostly service providers, how to do this work holistically and healthily, sustainably long term. So, yeah, that's a bit of the
I
story.
love Yeah, and exactly like you said at the very beginning, like this is a conversation that's just not being had anywhere enough. And so for you to not just be out there and like the therapist side of things, but to also bring in the business side of things where you're just like combining everything, I'm like, it's just so powerful, so good. I've learned so much from you. And so I'm like, it's about time for you to be sharing all the knowledge with the world. But there's something that you said that I want to dive deeper into, which is being on social media. And I think this is a huge, probably, and you could speak to this too, but I think in my opinion and in my experience with my clients and my students, I would say that this is probably the biggest like issue when it comes to mental health is being on social media. And as an online entrepreneur, online business, like it's a necessity. And
hmm
so many people get caught up in, including myself, in the vanity metrics. And I think it's one of those things that's so much easier said than done to just not focus on the vanity metrics, where it's, yeah, that's great, but don't focus on it. It doesn't matter. It's so much easier said than done. And same thing, like when the trolls are coming in, it's so much easier said than, my husband said this all the time to me. I'm just waiting for the day, like when you realize that the trolls messages, they don't matter anymore. And I'm like, I'm waiting for that day too. All these different things where it's so much easier said than done. And I would love your perspective on how do you navigate working on and using a platform like Instagram or any social media platform that, like you said, is it's naturally addictive. It brings up a lot of comparison, self-judgment, trolls, the vanity metrics, all of that good stuff. Like, how do we navigate that without burning out, without feeling down on ourselves, and having that as not having that to not be a reflection on our self-worth, our value?
Yeah, there's so many different directions to take this in because each person is going to have whatever they deal with personally come up with. It's a mirror. All of this is just a mirror. So if you already struggle with maybe, I'll just give this as an example. Everybody loves to talk crap about my bangs. That's like a big thing that I get with the trolls, right? But and for some
What?
reason that I know that's just what they want to pick on, right? Or whatever,
Yeah.
right? But if I had a problem with my bangs, then I would get all up in arms about it. It would dysregulate me for
Yeah.
the rest of my day. So a really big part of it is how can you, in whatever equivalent that is, and that's a super surface level. We can
Yeah.
talk about way deeper things, right? But I think that can maybe be a relatable thing is that nobody else maybe in my life thinks much about my bangs. And if I cared
Yeah.
about my bangs, then that would dysregulate me. So a lot of it comes down to how can you do your own personal work to say, what is this bringing up in me? What do I need to do? Whether it's in therapy, with a business coach, with someone in your life, with your own journaling, with your own self exploration, with your own nervous system regulation, what is this bringing up in me? And staying curious around, is this true to me? And if it's not, then how can I recognize? And I think a big part of this too is we can even think as humans, like, why would someone say that? Even if I didn't, it can dysregulate you just in the fact to say, wow, someone's being mean. Why is that happening? So there's these
Yeah.
huge meta questions that we ask about humanity and people, and it's a complex answer, right? That, but to recognize that this is all a personal journey with whatever's triggering you has information for yourself around what you need to work through. And that is a personal thing. I think a lot of the times we want
Yeah.
to focus on all the business and like strategy and the how do we do this thing, and it's not as tangible as that in a lot of ways, because if we're not working on ourselves in that process and we're not allowing even the process of being a creator online to be a reflection of our own, where we have personal growth that needs to be developed, if we're not using that consciously as a way to develop ourselves and our the human behind the business, then we're throwing away a huge opportunity for our own personal development. So in some ways, if you have a troll that's really triggering you, is what is that bringing up in me, and how can I use it as a mirror for my self development? And of course that's
Ooh.
going to be different for each person depending upon what it
Yeah.
is.
No,
Hmm.
for sure. And that's so funny that you brought up your bangs, because I've been in the position where I had a troll that was commenting on my stuff like 2 months ago that was saying that my carpet, that there was no way that I could have carpet in my office if I was making the amount of money that I was making, as if to say that having carpet in your office equals the amount of money that you make. I don't know. I don't know what that troll was trying to say, but I came across a post on Instagram a while ago, and I think it said something along the lines of like your triggers are your lessons. And so that was like perfect in terms of what you were talking about, where there's just so much that we can learn, and it's all about looking at us. And I think a lot of times we do look at other people, especially in the troll situation, where it's like, why are they doing that? Like trying to explain why they are doing those things, which there's nothing that we can control there. We can only control ourselves. And so I just think that I just loved what you said there around our triggers. But my question to you is, we talked about trolls. How does this apply in terms of like metrics on Instagram, like vanity metrics
Mm.
and things like that? Because I do think that's like a different approach, where obviously that is still an internal thing for sure. But like, how do you approach that? If someone comes to you and they are struggling with, their views on Instagram and they're starting to doubt their own worth, like, how would you approach that?
First of all, just that there is a stroke of luck in some ways as well. There's consistency and there's value and there's all these really beautiful things that we can help teach someone. And there is also a stroke of luck that comes into it. So some of it really is practice and not taking it personally. Like today, despite having as many followers as I do, you're going to have low days. I had a
Yeah.
really floppy video, even though there's really nothing, from my opinion, it's not any different. I had lots of good comments, right? It's just some of it is the practice of not taking it personally. Some of it
Yeah.
is actually the algorithm. Some of it is what time you post it and all these other factors that just you don't have in your mind at the time. Although I know that's really hard to keep in mind because we do take it personally. And it is a addictive. We've been trained over time to really enjoy likes, to really want more views, to have the vanity is a part of it's kind of street cred a little bit to say, here's how many
Yeah.
followers I have, here's look at my engagement. And so I would say with anything, stay curious with what it's bringing up in you. Is it that it's that you're embarrassed because you don't want other people to look at you that way? Is it your own actual physical addiction to wanting the likes? Is it that you feel like there's so much riding on your business that if you don't have this video do well? And at the same time, also recognizing there are people who have way less followers and way less engagement than me that actually make more money than me. So, also recognizing that vanity metric, at least on Instagram, is actually not a great measurement for success in general. I've had
Yeah.
people that have less than 10,000 followers that are making really good money because they have a very engaged audience. So, it's just, it all just depends on, again, what is it bringing up in you, and staying
Yeah.
curious around that, because then that you can actually get to the source of what's happening for you and help soothe that a little bit more. Mhm.
Yeah. No, I love that. And, something that you mentioned when we were talking earlier was that a lot of people focus on the strategy aspects of things. And you were just saying there is a stroke of luck to things, which I love that you said that because obviously you've built a very amazing community in terms of like followers and all of that. But I would also agree that sometimes, and people always say this too, they're like, the reels are the posts that like you spend the least amount of time on, or the ones that end up going viral. And I'm like, that's like a perfect
It's so true.
example of that. But I also think too, like with anything, there's like the strategy paired with like the mindset aspect of things. And I want to talk a little bit more about the mindset side of things when it comes to business. And I think when it comes to building a business, people oftentimes, just in my experience working with people, disregard the mental aspect of things because it's like the woo.
Mhm.
And they only really focus on like the strategy because in their minds, they're like, this is something that's a lot more tangible, like you were saying too, where it's like, you have almost like the steps to take. Whereas, like with the mindset side of things, it's not always in that way. But in reality, though, you need both the mindset and the strategy in order to thrive and succeed. So, I would love to know why focusing on our mental and holistic health is crucial for long term success in our businesses.
Yeah, ultimately, we can't separate our business from our humanity, right? I think that we try to. We might try to compartmentalize, but in reality, everything that you deal with as a human is going to show up in your business, whether that's your boundaries with yourself and your clients. That's going to help you not get burnt out if you know where your boundaries lie with either how much you work or how much you're offering to someone else, or it impacts everything, or whether it's your self worth. I mean, that's going to change how you talk about your offers. It's going to change
Yeah.
your magneticness around if people feel attracted to you and what you offer, right? There's so many different things that are going to show up, including your nervous system regulation and how you manage stress. If you are getting dysregulated all the time about lack of the vanity metrics that you want, or the glitches that happen all the time, or a low month in business because that's just going to happen, or just there's so many things we could list off that are going to naturally dysregulate your nervous system. And what we know is that whenever we get dysregulated and go into survival flight or flight freeze fawn states, we can actually turn off our prefrontal cortex, which is a very important part of our brain to actually think rationally, come up with solutions, really be able to look at the big picture, and including focus and creativity and some major, seriously important functions to actually be able to run a business well. And so if we're not actually focusing on, and it's not just the mindset, and I think that this is something that I maybe bring in as a unique perspective, because I think the business world says mindset because it's a very that is even more accessible because mindset can be trendy and fun. But as a holistic therapist, I'm like, what about the body? What about your emotions? What about your entire nervous system? Because we can get
Mhm.
into a mental place with it, but ultimately it's not always an intellectual exercise. You can know something but feel completely different. And it's
Mhm.
looking at your whole humanness as a you can't separate it. It's something that is the actual foundation. I once had a mentor tell me that if you're not working on the human behind your business, it's like you're trying to build a house without a foundation. And you just
Mhm.
can't do it, right? It's going to crumble at some point. You're going to burn out. You're going to have lack of focus. You're going to have bad boundaries, or you're not going to be selling your stuff. And most of the time that comes back to a human element or something that's going on within you that needs to be adjusted in the long term in order to actually see success in your business.
No, I love that. And I love that you mentioned how it affects every single area of not just our business, but our personal life. And our personal life affects our business. So it's just like everything
Mm-hmm.
is just integrated and connected. And for the listeners, we had an issue with tech. So I'm on Zencaster and we got cut off halfway through this podcast episode and we hopped back in and Morgan's, oh, this is a perfect example of dysregulating your nervous system. And it's funny that as you were speaking, like when you said that initially when we hopped back into the episode, I was like, oh yeah. But as you were speaking, I was like, wait, that's so true. Because when that happened for the very first time with a guest that I was doing a podcast episode with, I was like distraught. Like I
Yeah, you
literally
get
did not even
frazzled.
know how,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't even know how to think. And I clearly remember that episode going live and I was like, that episode was like, it was all on me. I was just like, a basket case in that episode because of the technology of it, and it totally dysregulated my nervous system. But when it happened now, I'm just like, oh yeah, this is like normal, like we're just jump back into things, like it's just how it is. And so I think that like that is just like a small example of the many different scenarios. And there's a lot of times where technology hasn't been my friend, where I can think back of like how it's totally dysregulated my nervous system. But a question that I would have for you is like, when that happens, when you're like in that panic mode, are there any sort of like techniques to help you to get out of that, to get back in and being focused and getting back, I don't know, just getting back into the flow of things?
Yeah, definitely. And that's a whole part of what I work with people in the holistic health side of things and now I've brought into for business owners. There's a wide range of things and just depends on your own nervous system and what you need and what's coming up for you because you might have a different technique for if that brought you into a place of sadness versus a place of anger and frustration, right? So it's first getting to know what's the emotion that's showing up, what's the actual sensation that's showing up in my body, is it anxiety? Is it anger? Because then you can adjust to what techniques there are. Some of that looks like bilateral stimulation. That means engaging both sides of your body. It's ultimately a therapy technique that has been adapted over time. They originally was using it in EMDR therapy, but we see that it actually helps your entire nervous system get back into a parasympathetic nervous system state. So you've got your prefrontal cortex is back online, which is the part of the brain we talked about that usually goes off. And that's why you felt frazzled, is that the
Yeah.
rational part of the brain is, we call it flipping your lid. It's just like you're offline now. And that's what's actually happening. So first of all, recognizing that you're in that place can be huge. Saying, oh, my lid is flipped right now. I need to do some nervous system regulation. And whether that's bilateral stimulation, some people might be watching this on YouTube, but other people are probably listening to it. If you put your thumbs together as if you're like Napoleon Dynamite with the butterfly, and then so you're crossing your thumbs and then you place your hands on your collarbone and you tap alternating one at a time,
that's a form of bilateral stimulation. Those are butterfly taps. So that's actually activating both hemispheres of your brain, and it's getting your parasympathetic nervous system back online. So that's just one example. There's so many different kinds, and that's some of what I talk about in on my Mind's Eye Guidance account. So yeah, the holistic side of my business. Mm-hmm.
I love that so much. In terms of burnout, is that like the same concept? Like when it comes to nervous system regulation, when it's disrupted, like the example that I was just giving of technology interrupting the podcast interview, is that the same? I don't even, I'm like so out of my realm here when it comes to terminology, but is that the same experience when it comes to burnout, or is that something that like is totally presented differently in your body?
I think burnout shows up differently for each person, and because it could be indicative of maybe you're not in the right line of work or something is off, or it's anytime you're feeling burnout, there's something that's off that needs to be addressed. And that's information that we need to listen to in order to feel fulfilled long term. And so it can feel dysregulating, period, to be in burnout. But really, what's happening is so our nervous system can go into a hyper aroused place, which is a lot more anxiety and stress and that elevated state, that anger, it's hypervigilance. Or you can get into a hypo aroused state, which is a lot more shut down. You can feel like, oh, I don't really want to get out of bed, a lot slower. So, a lot of the
Yeah.
times, whenever we're feeling burnout, it can be into that hypo aroused place. And but that comes with a combination of emotional, mental, and physical sensations for us. So getting really clear on what am I starting to feel? Because if we're proactive about it, that's really the best way to go about it. Because if we start to say, oh, I'm starting to feel that lethargy when I'm doing my work. Okay, what do I need to do to be proactive to make adjustments now to prevent that burnout happening? Because I think what we do a lot of the times is we swing back and forth between pendulums of hyper arousal, go, I'm anxious, I got to get all my stuff done and go. And then we just
Yeah.
burn out through that pendulum swing. And then we go back the other way and we get into a
Yeah.
hypo aroused state. And it takes us a week or plus of just being super shut down, and we have to then just, and a lot of times we go back and forth. So a lot of the work I do is helping people stay in that middle ground, because if we're regulated, then we don't actually have to have those huge amounts of recovery.
Yeah. And that's actually, as you were speaking, I'm like, oh my gosh, I see this. And I don't know if the term would be necessarily burnout, but I see this so much when it comes to Instagram growth where people are like, oh, I'm like super dedicated to posting on Instagram and I'm going to post every single day for 30 days. And then they do that and they don't necessarily see the results that they're wanting to see. And then they're like, oh, now I'm just not going to post at all. And then they're like, shoot, now I'm not posting at all. This is affecting my business or I'm not hitting my goal. So I'm just going to jump back into things again.
Yeah.
And then it's just like the ups and downs of things. What would you say to someone who's like in that roller coaster, specifically in the example of posting on Instagram, showing up on social media, where they're like super ready to do it and then they're like, oh, I'm not seeing the results that I'm wanting to see, and then they step back and then they come back into things and back and forth?
I can speak from my own self that it took me 6 months straight of posting every single day before I started seeing any sort of results or momentum. And I know that's a long time. And I know personally, it wasn't until a year in of posting every single day that I was at more of like 100,000 followers. Just the reality of, and I think some of it is also knowing what you're signing up for and being really honest, because I think there's so many people out there that are just saying it's easy, don't worry about it. And you're not going to see results immediately. We live in a very instant gratification society and culture. So a lot of it is whatever you're posting for rooted enough in a why that's going to push you to do the thing, even if the result isn't there immediately, because you've got to have that long-term vision to really anchor even into your nervous system to say, this is worth it right now, even if I get 0 likes or 0 views, because it's giving me a repetition of practice, or it's giving something like, there's got to be something that helps you regulate in that moment to say, this is actually worth it still, even if those likes didn't come in or whatever the results are, because that's a huge part of it, is staying consistent, having a true anchor in why the consistency is important to you, because it's
Yeah.
not always going to be something you want to do every day.
No, yeah. 1000% can look back on my own journey and even still experiencing that to this day of just keeping myself rooted in the why. And I've been through a lot of different phases. I posted 120 times before I started seeing any sort of result. And then
Yep.
even just recently, like going on maternity leave and coming back from maternity, there's just been a lot of things that I've experienced in terms of having to stay deeply rooted in my why. Now, the last question I have in terms of the holistic health, mental health side of things for you is, I think a lot of the things that we've been talking about have been obviously fantastically amazing and super tangible as well. But I think a lot of times when it comes to these topics, people are thinking very similarly to what I said at the very beginning when it comes to being on social media, where it's so much easier said than done. What would you say to those types of people where it's, yeah, like your triggers are your lessons. Okay, that's so much easier said than done. Or when it comes to burnout, like recognizing the signs. And before we get to that point, just like, what would you say to someone who's very much in that mindset of, okay, yeah, like I get that, but it's when I get into that moment, like it's harder for me to actually do the thing that I need to do to get out of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And that's a huge part of why we need community and mentors and people to help hold us accountable to doing some of that stuff, because we might see it and we might have awareness of it, but until it actually gets implemented into your life, you're not going to see any change or differences. And so we need that positive reinforcement of, oh, whenever I focus on this, I actually see a difference in results to how, wow, that nervous system regulation routine, whenever I actually did it, and maybe I was held accountable by a mentor or by myself, even if it's like your partner, to say, hey, the next time that I get dysregulated about this thing, ask me this question, come up with a direct plan of, I know this is a trigger. I really need help staying curious around what this is bringing up for me. And then I'm going to follow a nervous system regulation sequence that maybe I learned from Morgan or elsewhere, to come up with a direct plan of how, especially if you know that certain things are triggering to you. Like if it was specifically very triggering to you when you have tech issues, okay, every time that I do this, create literally a SMART goal around it. Or if people don't know what that is, it's like specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Like create a very set goal that is attainable for you, that around that trigger, so that you can make it very tangible. And we need that outside support to really help hold us accountable to it.
Ooh, I love that so much. Community is so important. Okay, my last question for you that I love to ask all my guests is, if you could go back to day one of your journey as an entrepreneur and give yourself any sort of advice, what would it be?
It's all worth it. It's all of it. All of the downs and the ups, like it's all worth it. And I think that's something I really would have loved to have implemented at that time, because we've talked a lot about the ups and downs and the swings and the pendulums. And I wish that from day one, I thought of it more, instead of like peaks and valleys of like highs and lows, and the lows I have to get myself and dig myself out. And it's like this tumultuous, hard, dysregulating thing to go through to experience the downs, because there must be something wrong with me. That post didn't do well, so it was like about me and whatever. I wish that I would have seen it actually as a slingshot, and creating something. It's like momentum. It's pulling you back in those seasons that it feels like it's pulling you back, and it's challenge and there's tension. It's more like a slingshot, because during those times I also recognize that I'm reevaluating my content strategy or my business or even myself personally, and it's creating momentum. So it's like there's not something that's wrong with you. It's just a part of the process, that there's going to be moments and seasons of that tension and that pullback that are going to propel you, as long as you are doing some of that analysis and work behind the scenes, to maybe every time that I've done that, like sometimes I'll lose followers and then I'll find like a huge viral video will go off after I do that, because I've looked at stuff, or I've had a super low month and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so bad. And I think it's down, but actually it's that pullback, because then I launch something new, or I have a different approach, or I change my messaging, or like whatever it is. And then I have like the highest month that I ever had in business. So I feel like I just wish I would have told myself a long time ago, hey, you're in a slingshot. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just part of the process. Like it doesn't have to be peaks and valleys. It can just be momentum that's building over time.
Ooh, I have like chills. Like I've never heard it explained explained in that way before, and that is so freaking powerful. I always like to say sometimes we have to take one step back to take two steps forward, and it's not even to say that like the lows are taking a step back, but like the way that you've explained it, I'm just like, wow, where's that been my entire life? I love the slingshot example, so thank you so much for sharing that. I'm like, that was worth like mic drop. That was like the best part of the entire episode, in my opinion. Everything else you shared was like obviously top notch too, but that was so good. Okay, I know that people are going to want to connect with you because you're just absolutely fantabulous. So where can listeners find you?
Thank you. So I have two branches of my business. The holistic nervous system regulation side of things is Mindset Guidance, and it's MIND period PSY period guidance, a little pun there. And the other side of my business to work more with actual entrepreneurs and help them scale their businesses and do all of this sustainably. And we fit in some nervous system regulation and obviously personal work and holistic things, but a lot more strategy as well with actual business things. That's Mindset Biz. So it's MIND period PSY period BIZ. Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Morgan. You're absolutely amazing, and I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. You too.